How do I find a new job? How can I make a career change? And the biggest question of all, can I really find a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I get what companies are looking for when hiring top talent. What that means for you is an unmatched combination of insider knowledge and the best kept secrets about making heart-based career changes and navigating the ups and downs of job searching in today's world of work. Whether you're a recent graduate navigating the job market for the first time or a seasoned professional ready for a career change, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to be challenged and inspired to move beyond your self-doubt and take the right next steps towards landing a career you love. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm Jen Smith, your host, and today I'm thrilled to be back here for another installment of Flourishing Together, a monthly segment dedicated to curated conversations with industry insiders sharing wisdom and strategies for improving your work and well-being. Now, this is our first interview episode in a while, so we just closed out our special summer series, 5 Minutes to Flourish, and I'm excited to get back into a regular routine, and I'm really excited for our first guest of Season 6. You are in for a treat, my friends. I'm delighted to introduce you to Heather Eck, a modern artist, mystic, author, and spiritual teacher. Founder of Heather Eck Studios, she merges joy, beauty, and wisdom through her art and spiritual teachings. Heather's award-winning acrylic paintings have been showcased in nearly 30 group shows and 10 solo exhibits, and her work has gotten attention from publications like Vogue, Midtown Magazine, and Voyage Raleigh. Heather's unique gift of synesthesia, which I hope I pronounced that right, allows her to interpret people, places, and experiences through color, which is so incredibly fascinating. So she uses this ability to identify the most healing colors for individuals, and it's guided by the chakra system and her spiritual insights. Her paintings are then inspired by the mysteries of the universe, and they aim to uplift, inspire, and heal, which I can attest to. So fun fact, the way that Heather and I met is that I heard Heather on another podcast. Shout out to Jen at Brave Women at Work. And as soon as that podcast ended, I literally immediately booked a spirit portrait with her, which we are going to talk about. So Heather is incredibly intuitive, and going through the spirit portrait process opened really interesting doors and some new collaborations for me. The process is fun, it's insightful, and she's just such a beautiful spirit. I've been looking forward to this conversation for months. So without further ado, Heather, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see you.
Thanks for being here. I'm just so excited to share your work with our listeners and with the world. So listeners, what I didn't mention in the intro is that before becoming a professional artist, Heather worked in human resources. So clearly there's a connection here. And I'm pretty obsessed with her career story and the transformation from corporate HR to fine artist. And so, Heather, I'd love for you just to share a little bit more about your story and how you made that transition.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of those funny stories where I started out as a very creative kid. I loved art. I studied art in college. I sort of set about on the path of human resources after chatting with my dad about it a little bit. And he kind of said, I think you'd be good at this. And I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And this was really me sort of avoiding the starving artist sort of mindset. I dove into what I thought was going to, offer me the steady paycheck and the 401k and all of that stuff.
Right.
So I did corporate HR for almost 20 years. Towards the end of my career, I'd gone and gotten my coaching certification through ICF so I was really on the HR path and doing all the things. And then I kind of started to feel the kind of tired that no amount of time off or retreat or anything was going to make me feel better. And I was working with a spiritual teacher at the time, and she and I were sort of talking about, what do you want to do? What's on your path? And we said, let's look back at your childhood because your gifts often show up in your childhood. So it's always interesting to look back at things and go, oh, there's my origin story. It happened way back then. And I started painting, and it probably took about 4 or 5 years or so of doing painting and doing HR at the same time, and then ultimately made the decision to transition out of human resources and to kind of like cliff dive into being an artist full time.
I love it. There's so much goodness in there. I just have to pull out the piece that you mentioned around going back to your childhood, because there is so much goodness in that. And when I work with folks around career clarity, that is definitely something to think about. So if anyone out there is listening and curious about, hey, what's next? Like, go back to your childhood. What did you spend your time doing? Try to remember what really generated your energy and see how you could connect that to your future. Of course, hindsight is 2020, but it takes us some time to kind of figure out that path. And I also love that you shared it took 4 or 5 years. So you did it kind of on the side before you made that cliff dive or that final jump. Now, can you just kind of take us back to that moment? And this is usually a pretty defining moment for folks that have made that shift. So that moment where you either started talking about it out loud, because that can be a really big pivotal moment, or the moment that you resigned, or what were you feeling and kind of how did you get over to that space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of look back at that time in my life in three sort of separate chunks of time. The first was when I was offered a solo show on the same day that I was offered a promotion and a pretty significant raise. And it was literally, I was so confused and I was irritated by the fact that they both came at the same time, because I felt like the universe was handing me 2 different menus and saying, like, pick which one you want. And I felt so conflicted by the idea of that. And I remember laying in bed that night thinking, I am so freaking excited about the ability to go show my artwork somewhere. And I'm grateful for this promotion, but I'm not excited about it.
Yeah.
And I could feel in my body what that energy felt like. And I kind of describe it as like the prospect of doing the art show made me feel nervous. Ian Van Sant says, if you don't have a little pee running down your leg, you're not doing it right. So I had like a little pee running down my leg for that side. But I was also really excited about it, and I felt really expansive. And then on the job side, I felt constricted and tight about having to make that decision, which felt like more responsibility, more work, more stress. So I sort of looked at those 2 things as like what made me feel the best.
Yeah.
And then after that, I sort of decided, okay, I think I'm ready to leave here. I'm going to do this in a block of time where I want to give my notice, but offer to work out through a period of time and bring somebody in, transition, do all the things the right way. And after that decision was made, then I felt like the universe squeezed me out, because the minute that I sat down with my manager to say that I was resigning, I couldn't even get the words out. And I planned to work. It was like he just instantly stood up and said, let's go tell your team. And then 2 weeks later, I was gone.
Yeah.
So
wow.
it happened that fast. And I was like head spinning going, oh my gosh, what did I just do?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that the universe presented you with those 2 options on the same day. I mean, what a test, right? So having the solo show and the promotion, and my goodness, listening to your body and feeling nervous but excited and then constricted. Listeners, that is such a great way to make a decision like this. And it even if you don't have 2 offers, to choose from, put yourself in that place. Put yourself, pretend that you got 2 offers, one following your heart, one following your head, and put those in front of you and see how your body reacts to that. And that can really be such great information to, move towards your heart. And that's what I always talk with folks about, my heart-based career planning is like, there's always this head, heart, push, pull. And congratulations to you for following your heart and, giving it the time and energy and space. And that's another thing too, is like, I always tell folks, like, try it, see what happens. You can always go back. I don't know if did you have that in your mind too? Like, oh, I could always go back if I had to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
everything is fixable.
Yeah.
Everything you can always change your mind, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
never felt like this is the end of my career. And I've had to have jobs here and there to supplement as I was building.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, it's always been kind of like, if this doesn't work, then there's always another
We'll go
plan.
somewhere. Yeah, exactly. I love that. Awesome. Now, talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges. So, obviously, there's the time, there's the finance, like there's a lot of challenges that go through your mind when you're making a change like this. And so, can you just share maybe one or two of like the biggest challenges and how you moved through those obstacles?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest challenge, honestly, was going into an office and interacting with people all the time to
Yes, the
going into the
structure.
studio and just being me. It's kind of funny, and I joked about it a lot, that I had to buy a new printer and I had to install my new printer. And these are not complicated things, but all of a sudden I had this realization that I was my IT person. I was like, oh, okay, I am the artist and the marketer and the IT person and the finance director. And so all of a sudden I was wearing all these hats that I knew just enough about to be dangerous, but not enough to know how to do everything. So I think the challenge was, trying to transition into just being a single operator of a business and having to make sure that everything got done without a team when you first start out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember the days were so much quieter. I was like, where's all the IMs? Like, why isn't my phone ringing? Why don't I have 500 emails to respond to? I'm like, wait, what happened to my days? It's like, but it turns into a blessing because then you can make it what you want. But I've heard that from a lot of folks is that structure too. It's like, hey, we have team members to do different things and now it's all mine. And so did you find out any like piece of the business? Was there any like side of the business side of this work, being a solopreneur, that you really were surprised that you really enjoyed doing, that you weren't sure that you would enjoy doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the marketing side of things, I really enjoy doing. I don't know necessarily that I'm strong in it, but I enjoy it. And what I found is that the more I am my most authentic self in my marketing, the more effective it is. So trying not to get caught up in comparing or looking at what other people are doing, but really just trying to stay true to what makes sense for me has been a good learning for me, for
Yes,
sure.
for sure. And it's so hard because there are so many business like, oh, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that's one of the things that really I struggle with. Like none of those things that I need to be doing resonated with me. So I didn't do any of them. And I'm like, I just can't bring myself to do that. So I'm so glad that you found that niche. I think your marketing is great. I mean, I love your Instagram. Like folks, go check out Heather's Instagram. It's fabulous. And then obviously you're doing a great job with podcasts. So you definitely shine through in what you're doing. So it's working.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, of course, of course. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about visualization and creating art. So one of the things you might have heard me talk about is heart art. So I really believe that when you have a goal, especially a career change or something big that you want to do, creating a visual of that goal is a very powerful part of the process. And so it's almost like translating something that's up here through you onto paper, whatever medium that is. It could be a collage, it could even be digital, like it could be painting, whatever you want. But there's something that happens there. And I don't know the science behind it. I don't know. I would just wanted to see if you had any insights or experiences about that concept that you could share.
Yeah, I definitely think something happens between the brain and the hand when you write something out or you visually draw something. So for me, like especially recently, I found I can get stuck behind my computer a lot, thinking and coming up with things or writing things down or, documenting. But it isn't until I step away and I often will grab a big sheet of poster board and sort of map out almost like whiteboarding something where you just give yourself permission to brainstorm or jot ideas down or to think big and try to kind of elevate yourself up from the day to day and really think about what's the plan, what's the direction, how do you want this to look a year from now. And that has been the most helpful to me when it comes to actually like being able to visualize. And I would say like, it's almost like vision boarding or like manifesting where you're looking at or thinking about what is it that you want to see and what's it going to take to get there.
Yes, exactly. And I think about, this summer we had the Olympics, and a lot of those, there was some media about folks just kind of like closing their eyes before they were going to compete. And, I'm sure that they're visualizing them winning or, getting a medal or whatever it is. So I agree with you. Like it takes a minute, but like if you get away from the computer screen and, even like mind mapping, like people do the mind mapping and just like start with something, it can help you take a step out of your head and just see things and think bigger, like, and then taking it a step further to visualize and then move forward, with whatever is next on your path. And I actually was reading more about this as we were preparing, and I saw one study, and it said something to the effect of like when you hear information, your recall is about 10% of that information, like within 24, 42, or maybe it's like 72 hours or something like that. But then you add a picture, and that number shoots up to 65% of recalling. So,
wow.
Just audio is 10%, and then add an image and it's 65. So I just thought that was such a substantial difference. And so visualization and bringing things to life in art format, is really an effective way to set goals and, make things more specific and bring them to life. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for sharing about that. So I'm going to continue to encourage folks to do their heart art.
Totally.
I love it. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about your spirit portraits. So in my world, I would say that your spirit portraits are the essence of heart art. So talk to us about like how this came about for you and maybe just like walk through the process. And obviously I've been through it so we can share for listeners that are curious about it, kind of what to expect and what the outcome is.
Yeah, for sure. The spirit portrait for me is like a snapshot of your soul. It is a beautiful, colorful visualization of your radiant spirit. And I said recently, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves when we see ourselves in a picture, we look in the mirror, we cannot be the most kind sometimes. But I think when you see yourself expressed through color and shimmering gold ink or something, you just see yourself in a different way and you go, oh my gosh, I am beautiful. There's something really lovely about seeing your aura, your essence, your spirit, or your soul in a painting that way. So that to me is like true heart art, like you said.
Yes, it really is. And so, okay, so walk us through how this works. So I'm just going to share how it worked on my side, and then you can tell us like how this all came about. So for me, it was super simple. So all I did was I filled out a form online and submitted the form and the payment. And then Heather went to work and, she uses her intuition and her talents. And then after she did the painting, I think it was like maybe 1 or 2 email exchanges. And then after she did the painting, we met over Zoom and she presented the painting and we talked through it as like a 30-minute call. And I was just blown away by Heather's intuition and what came about. And it is a beautiful painting. I have it in front of me. I brought it for inspiration for our talk. I know this isn't being recorded on video, but it's so beautiful. So I'm just going to try to explain it a little bit. It's like this pinkish, reddish, rosy color. It almost looks like a rose in its shape and form. And it almost reminds me of like hands holding something, 2 hands together holding something. And you can look at it at different directions. I think at one point, Heather and I were like, oh, there's a bird in there. Like we saw a bird's face and we saw, I think like a dolphin. I was like, oh my God, yeah, it was really cool. And then it kind of has some orange in it and like the gold shimmery points. And then it has some yellow in the middle. And so I don't know, I just love it so much. And I get chills even when I hold it. Like it was just such a fun experience. And so Heather, maybe just tell us like from your perspective, like what you do when you get someone stranger, never met me, reaching out to you to do something like this, where you're going to get a snapshot of their spirit.
Yeah, that's really great. I definitely like to connect with people through a photograph initially,
that's
just
right.
so
I
can.
a picture.
Yeah, that's right. And then that's really because I just want to kind of tune into a quick sort of in the moment impression of somebody's energy. And when I look at somebody, I will kind of get an instant 2 to 3 colors for them. And those colors tell me where they dwell in their body, in their spirit, or in their emotions. And I associate those colors with the chakra system. So I'll take some time to write down notes about what colors came through and maybe what symbols or messages initially came through. And then I'll sort of meditate and ask for guidance on, okay, what's the story here? What's happening? Where are they spending time? And what's going to be the most healing for them too. So when I see a color for somebody, it tells me where they dwell. And when I say dwell, it means that where you're spending your time, because there might be something you're working on there or you're processing, or there might have been pain there or trauma or a wound. And so when I do your portrait, I'm trying to offer the most healing color and imagery that will be supportive of helping you find grounding, support, or healing. And then that Zoom session is so that I can show you your painting, tell you all about the messages that came through, and really just sort of talk about maybe how those colors can be more supportive to you and help you build bridges to, new and exciting things in your life.
So awesome. And you guys, I can't say this enough. I mean, Heather picked up on stuff like complete stranger. She picked up on stuff that happened, that part of my story that I haven't shared. And I'm going to share it now after going through this process. But oh my goodness, I couldn't even believe it. And I get chills. We were talking before and we both had chills. Like there's a lot of cool energy that is exchanged in this process. And so I wanted to ask you, do you mind sharing like what do the colors mean? So like I see the chakra, like those images of the chakra up and down the body. Like, can you tell us like what those colors mean?
Yeah, definitely. So the main chakras are aligned with the colors of the rainbow too. So it's kind
Yeah.
of easy to remember. If you start at the base of your spine, that's your root chakra, and that's the color red. And that's supportive of your sense of stability and support, financial stability, your family, your tribe, like who you surround yourself with. Then you move up to the sacral chakra, which is just below the belly button, and that color is orange. And the sacral is responsible for your creativity, how you express your emotions, sexuality, how you engage with other people, and how you kind of engage with yourself. And then you have your solar plexus chakra, which is above your belly button, but below your heart. And that's the color yellow. And that is all about your sense of self-worth, confidence, optimism, sort of like where the seat of the soul is. Then you move up into the heart chakra. This is my favorite. This is expressed by two colors, both green and pink. And those colors represent the self-love component or the universal higher love component. So green is really about forgiveness, self-compassion, unconditional love. And then pink is really about like that higher love, that we are all connected, we're all one, and that there's, abundant love available to all of us. Then we move into the throat chakra, which is light blue. And the throat is really where we can express ourselves from a place of authenticity, where we speak and hear truth, and how we just communicate in general. Then you go into your third eye, which is indigo or navy. That is intuition. That's where you really kind of have that sense of sight or inner knowing. And then the crown chakra, where we had our head tingles up there, that's about white or violet. And that's really about your higher self and your consciousness connection to God or higher power or source energy. And so all of those chakras are those rainbow colors, and they each represent a spiritual, emotional, or physical aspect of ourselves. So when I see a color for somebody, that's what I'm kind of running through in your body is what color are you in and what does that mean?
Amazing. Go back to how you see things, people, places, experiences in color. Can you tell me more about that? Because it's fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. So I have something called synesthesia, and synesthesia roughly translates to your senses get crossed. So when I take in sound, taste, smell, whatever kind of sensory information, my brain wires sort of crisscross them, and I'll see them as color or form or symbol. And I'm making hand motions too, because in my mind I see almost like a choreography of sound or shape or something that comes through when I'm listening to music or tasting something or just sometimes even interacting with somebody too.
Wow. And how did you figure that out?
It's something that's been with me since I was a little kid. And I remember, listening to music. I love listening to music. Music is like really healing for me and very calming. And I would, in my mind, sort of see what the music was doing. If it was like a drum smash, I would see it as like a like a spark of something in my head, or if it
cool.
was a violin, I would see it or something. And I remembered like laying on the floor, drawing on a big sketch pad when I was listening to the music soundtrack for a movie or something.
Right.
But it wasn't really until a year or two ago that I figured out that it was called synesthesia. And
Okay.
there are many different forms of it. And I have many different forms of it. There's like sound to color synesthesia. There's mirror touch synesthesia, which is really if you see somebody who's in pain, you feel the sensation in your body.
Wow.
I mean, there's all kinds of different
Wild.
kinds out there, but only about 4% of the population have it.
Yeah, super unique. And how neat is it that you're using this gift and this talent, in your work? I mean, how amazing is that? Especially with like the painting and the colors and the spirit portraits and bringing it all together that way is just so fabulous. Now, one more question on the spirit portraits. How did that format of artistic expression come about? Like, how did you think to do these? How did that happen?
Yeah, that's a really great question. When I sort of returned to art, it was sort of like a light bulb went off, and it was as though all the childhood art making that I had done and sort of put aside for a long time came back. And it was honestly like I walked through a doorway and then it was available to me because I started painting a little bit here and there, and I started with fluid painting. People are probably familiar with that, or fluid paint pouring.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at a friend of mine from a class and I said, "Oh, you're green, dark green, gold, and white." And she was like, "What?" And then I made her a painting. And
oh, cool.
okay, yeah. I was like, okay, I don't really know what this means. I guess it's heart related. And so it really kind of evolved from there, where I was sort of asking people, can I paint you? Can I paint what I see for you? Can I put this down? Because I didn't really know at the time what it was. And my friend Amy's the one who came up with spirit portrait, because she said, you're really painting somebody's spirit. And she would call them a portrait. And I was like, oh, I guess you're right. And so it sort of evolved from there.
Wow. Shout out to Amy with the great the great branding on that, because
she's the best.
Fabulous. And then just out of curiosity, how long ago? Like, how long have you been doing these?
Probably since 2016, 2017.
Oh, quite some time. Yeah. Good for you. And then did you start doing them for folks that you were seeing in person and then decided to do this like virtually? Like, hey, I could do this with a photo and start doing this virtually?
Yeah. For a little while, I would have people over to the studio and I would do their painting in person.
I see. Yeah.
And it's evolved quite a bit because I would do their paintings on canvas with acrylic paints. And so I needed to find a way to be able to kind of make the process easy for me in terms of getting out of my own way, because I found that if somebody was in the studio, I felt pressure to get it done or to have it look a certain way or what have you. And then I said, okay, nobody in the studio. Let me do this by myself. Let me clear and smudge my space. Let me meditate alone. And then I was able to sort of say, let me be a channel through which, the divine loving messages come through. And let me not have any expectation over what this portrait looks like for someone, but just to be open to receive whatever messages are coming in and then just to deliver them. So really get out of my own way and just let whatever needs to come through in a loving manner.
Oh, I get chills again. It really does. It's so good. I can imagine the pressure of having somebody sitting there. And then it's not like you're painting a portrait of them. Like, it's not going to look like them. You know what I mean? So then it's like, you probably get different reactions because people don't know what to expect. And that would be so much pressure. I mean, what you're doing now to me is like, oh, that just like took a weight off my shoulders knowing you didn't have that pressure. So
thank you.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And then the medium you use is alcohol ink, right?
Right.
That's what that is. Yeah. It almost, and for those that aren't familiar with alcohol ink, it almost looks like a watercolor. I've used it. It's really fun. It's like you use literally alcohol on a board or, some type of paper, and then kind of drop the color in and it flows and kind of goes where it wants to go. And, because sometimes you kind of have to take away any expectations because it's not going to be perfect and it's going to flow. And I think that's really a lot of the beauty of these portraits is like the flowing that you can see throughout it. So
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think there have been times when I've tried to sort of manage what the piece looked like because of an idea or an expectation I put on myself over it or for a particular person. I want it to be perfect for this person. And what's it going to look like? I've done up to 8 different paintings for somebody and they all turned out the same. And I was like, just stop trying to control this.
you can't
It is
control
what
it.
it is.
That's hilarious. You're like, wait, it needs to look this other way and it just won't. Like it just won't. So that just tells you that you really are kind of channeling their energy and the universe and the divine and all these things into these images. So that's amazing. Oh my gosh, so cool. Well, this is just awesome. And I encourage everybody listening, you need a spirit portrait. Like it's just such a cool process. And I'm just so grateful that you took that leap from HR to do this for folks because it is such a gift, Heather. My goodness. So thank you. Now, if you were to speak with any of our listeners, a lot of them are folks that are professionals interested in making a change. So what type of guidance would you give to folks who are really craving a more creative path?
Yeah, I definitely think, just find a few minutes each day to be creative. And that could be through baking bread, by dancing in your living room, by journaling or by doodling or what have you. You don't have to spend hours a day working on something, but that progress over perfection, just try to make some progress each day on something to allow your spirit to sort of return where you get that sense of self back, you get that sense of inspiration back, and you kind of go, okay, this is my time to find that place of peace and happiness. And then sort of follow your curiosity about things. And if you have a curiosity about something, go see what it looks like or go check it out or take a day off and go to a museum, but build in that time for you to find something that makes your spirit feel lit up.
You are speaking my language because season 6, one of the things I wanted to do for season 6, and folks, this was not planned. So one of the things I wanted to do was mention at the end of every episode, a little 5 minutes to flourish takeaway. And here is your 5 minutes to flourish takeaway. And again, that was not planned. So again, the universe is just kind of setting this up for us. But yes, 5 minutes, that's all you need to do. And I love how you mentioned just connect with your soul, your spirit, and do something that lights you up for 5 minutes. You can build that in. I think of bookends, either the start or the end of the day when you have the most control over your time. Just do something for 5 minutes, and then that's going to add up, and you're going to notice your energy and how much you're looking forward to it. And then I love the follow the curiosity and see where those breadcrumbs take you because you just don't know. And then as we wrap up, I love asking folks for a flourishing favorite. So do you mind sharing one book or podcast or some kind of resource that had a significant impact on your career?
Yeah, I really struggled with this question because there's so many.
So many. Yeah.
I wanted to mention, right? Like there's so many I could post a list of them. But the one that popped up was by Michael Allen Singer, and it's called The Surrender Experiment.
Ooh.
And he wrote a book about when he identified his ego voice in his head, and he decided that he was going to say yes to everything that came up. And he surrendered to the doors that were opening, and he surrendered to walking through them. And he really stopped making decisions and just let himself be guided. And his story is remarkable, and it's really inspiring, and it's a goodie.
Ooh, I can't wait to read it. It's going on the list. I've decided to make a resource of all of these recommendations for folks. So we're going to have this little, it's going to be like a landing page with all of the book recommendations and podcast recommendations and, gifts that folks offer. So thank you. I can't wait to check that one out.
I can't wait to see the list.
Yay, I'll share it with you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I clearly love supporting you and artists, Heather. So where can folks find you out on the interwebs?
I'm all over the socials, and you can find me there at Heathereck Artist. And then on my website at heathereck.com/thank you, I have a special discount on spirit portraits for your listeners and a bunch of other freebies they can grab there too.
Yay. I love it. Yes. Everyone listening, go book your spirit portrait. It is so much fun. And you have a discount code here. We'll make sure that goes in the show notes as well. So Thank you so much, Heather. This has been so much fun. And thank you for sharing your gifts and your wisdom with me and all of our listeners. It's such a joy.
Thank you. It's been really great to chat with you again.
And as always, my friends, the notes from today's episode will be on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.